Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Boyos Discuss, the podcast where we pick a topic and then shoot the shit about it for a while. This week we're talking about episode 11 of Shenmue the Animation, which is titled Entangled. I'm Matthew, and I'm joined by my co-host Ben. How's it going?
Good.
So we do have a bit of an update with the news that we talked about last week on the episode of the podcast. The company who sort of is like teasing that maybe there's something with Shenmue 4 possibly being a thing. They're back to their shenanigans again, and they posted a tweet with a picture of just an apple and a banana.
Oh shit, dude. That's fucking huge.
And the text...
You serious? Oh, fuck.
So the text for the tweet said, "A big announcement is upon us in the next couple weeks. Stay tuned and fasten your seatbelts." And sort of what fans are speculating is that in Shenmue 3, every day that you're living sort of at Shenhua's house, she leaves like an apple and a banana for Ryo to take, because there's like a whole like food and stamina system in the game, and you gotta eat stuff to like keep your health bar up. And so that's the exact things that she leaves every day or every morning for Ryo. So it's like, I don't know, like either that's what it is, or it could be something totally different. Like, I don't fucking know.
Dude, what else could it be, man? Where else are you going to find an apple and a banana? It can only mean one thing.
Well, and especially after, like, how they've been talking recently. But, I mean, until we know officially anything, like, I would sort of take things with a grain of salt. And there are some people in the community who are sort of being like, hey, keep your expectations sort of in check. We don't know much about 110 Industries and, you know, sort of what they're, like, if they're super legit or what the deal is.
A fucking expansion pack to Shenmue 3 where you play as Shenhua giving Ryo his breakfast every day through QuickTime events.
But, yeah, so it's interesting that they specified, though, that, you know, in the next couple of weeks, because there's only 2 episodes of the anime left. So it's like, are they gonna coincide whatever they're announcing with the anime ending? It's interesting to see what'll happen, but we'll report on that, you know, sort of in the event that things do come about during the podcast. But
I better not post any more pictures of fruit. My heart can't take it, dude. The excitement.
Well, and it's funny because, like, when Shenmue 3 was announced at that Kickstarter, people sort of had an idea that it was going to be announced because Yu Suzuki tweeted a photo of a forklift outside of E3 before the conference happened. God! And people were like, no fucking
Y'all really
way.
get excited about the most fucking mundane shit I've ever heard.
You're damn right we do. But I don't know. So it's like, it's a similar sort of thing to that. Like, I'm getting similar vibes. But we'll see what sort of happens with that. But with that out of the way, we are going to go into this episode's synopsis. And there are going to be spoilers ahead. So we do recommend watching the show before you listen to this. So we open the episode with Shu Ying facing off against Dou Niu. We're sort of picking up where that cliffhanger ended last week. And, you know, while that's going on, she's fighting off some Yellowhead goons as well as Dou Niu. And Yondazu, he actually sort of puts up a fight against the Yellowhead goons who are up there. He's sort of whacking them with his cane.
Right.
And Yuan, she takes out her knife and she cuts the cane to pieces. And she's like, nah, man, that's enough of that. Calm down. And Shu Ying, she's able to sort of beat Dou Niu, and Yuan is like, boss, we got Yondazu, we don't really need to keep fighting. And he's like, oh, we'll get you next time. And they just sort of leave with their tails between their legs. And Ryo, he's just sort of like, ugh, and he faints. And that's sort of the end of that scene. But from there, Ryo wakes up in the convent, and essentially it's like a, you know, like a church, essentially, in Kowloon. And
I was surprised whenever I see like Christian stuff in Asia. I'm like, oh yeah, that's there.
Well, and like that is a thing in the game, but I almost want to say that they censored like because they have the statue of Mary with
Uh-huh.
like baby Jesus there. I think for some reason they censored it so that the baby is not there, and it's like, well, it's still just
What?
Mary.
Yeah.
Like we know what that is.
The fuck, man. They're so weird about
Yeah,
censoring religious stuff.
Yeah, and that was only for like the Western release too, which is even weirder.
What even would upset you? Like,
yeah, I don't know.
how dare they?
And there's a nun there too. Like,
Right.
you can't get around the fact
The
that
hell?
that's like,
Where did that idea we gotta censor that. Uh-oh.
yeah, it's weird. I don't
The
know
hell?
why they did that, but that's just sort of localization stuff. But yeah, he wakes up in this convent, and he comes to the realization that Xu Ying has essentially been his guardian angel throughout his time in Hong Kong and Kowloon. Anytime he's been in any sort of real danger, she's always been there to sort of save him. And
To knock out thugs with her breath
yeah, and
from the shadows.
and so they talk a little bit, and she's like, yeah, this is where me and my brother grew up in this convent here. And essentially he left to go on a path of revenge so that, he could kill their mother and father's killer. And Rio is now going down that same path, but of course he's not having any of it. He's like, I don't want to hear this. Goodbye. So he leaves the convent, and outside, Xu Ying sort of catches up with him and is like, hey, if you're really intent on doing this, spar with me, and if you're not able to beat me, then you don't have a chance in hell against fighting Lan Di, essentially. Right. And so they spar. He's completely outmatched. She's doing like this whole sort of like, you see like slow-mo, like sort of like outlines of her moving around. And she uses the counter elbow assault to basically, she doesn't hit him with it, but she sort of like...
Oh, she didn't? I thought she
like
did.
But she's like, I don't want to make your injuries worse. Yeah, she like knocks the breath out of him at least. And he's like, oh shit, like what's that move? And she's like, it's the fucking, like one of the 8 openers of Baji Quan, the counter elbow assault. And that's, I think it's sort of like not an Easter egg, but like a connective thing between like when this used to be like a Virtua Fighter RPG.
Yeah.
Baji Quan is the style that Akira uses in Virtua Fighter. And so it's sort of like an interesting thing where it's like, ooh, little references here and there. But
did Yu Suzuki did work on Virtual Fighter?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
He was, I think he was the director for that.
So he had to study martial arts to get the moves in that game down.
Yes.
And he's like, well, I already know these martial arts, just fucking put it over there. That's cool.
But yeah, sort of after that, she beats him pretty easily, and she's like, yeah, I'll teach you this move, but if I was Lan Di, you'd be dead right now, basically. Yeah. And she tells him that he needs to clear his mind from distractions and channel all of his focus so that he'll have the serenity of a polished mirror, which is like sort of her
thing,
her Yoda, like, do or do not.
There is only polished mirrors.
Yeah.
I like the whole setting for this scene. Like, it's cool. They're in like a courtyard at night, and it's like, Kowloon, so it looks real shitty, and the buildings are tall. Yeah. And it's just like tenant. What's the word? The tenements. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's like a tree sprouting.
Yeah.
Amongst the urban setting and the big full moon in the sky, and she's like dropping some wisdom bombs on him as like his teacher, and I'm like, this is dope. Like it reminds me, she's like the little oasis in the scum, and she's like, remember martial arts, homie.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's cool. That's cool imagery aligning with the scene,
It is really cool.
Took a few art classes, But the music too, it sounds like the beginning of Wind Waker, like that. Like I don't know what the instrument is, the little fucking string instrument that's all sad sounding.
Yeah, and they have sort of like changed the location of that convent. So like in the game, it's just in one of the like skyscraper buildings. It's just sort of inside of one of them. But in this, they moved it down to like the ground floor, and it's sort of like its own thing. Nice. It's cool.
Had columns and shit.
Yeah, and sort of like they do have some of that in the game. Like there are certain street fights that are sort of on like, I guess, ruins outside of the city. But they aren't like inside of the city itself, if that makes any sense. But yeah, after that we cut to Dou Niu's hideout, and he's sort of pissed off that he lost the fight with Xu Ying. He's like, who the fuck was that wench? Yeah, they're sort of talking, and he essentially, like, there's this weird sort of throwaway line where Yuan is speculating that it could be Chen's daughter, which is weird, and that's nothing that we've ever alluded to
Like
before.
Master Chen?
Yes. And that's a weird thing. We've never had any reference to that in the games or anything. And it's even weird because, like, the subtitle on Crunchyroll says, could that be Chun's daughter? But Yuan is clearly saying Chen, not Chun. And so it's this weird thing where, like, I don't know, Chun, that doesn't make any sense. That's not a character that we've ever come across before. It wouldn't mean anything, at least as far as I know. And so it's like, my assumption is that they meant Chen's daughter, and they just didn't properly do the subtitle for that. But
so they know about Master Chen, if that's true.
Yeah, well, like in the game, it's implied that Master Chen is the uncle of Joy. Like, there's a like when they're listening to all those cassette tapes, you can listen to a conversation between Joy and Gui Zhang, and she's like, "Oh, how's Uncle doing?" or so. Like, she says something like that, and you know, it's interesting then that, you know, we're getting this sort of throwaway line, especially since we know that Xu Ying's parents were both killed. So it's like, well, I don't really know what we're getting at here, or if that's gonna turn into something later in a season 2 or in Shenmue 4. Like, I don't know. But yeah, that is a weird line, and sort of from there, Dou Niu, he's like, well, I can't do this shit. I'm big dumb.
Right.
Like, I want you to do this, Yuan. You figure it out. And Yuan is like, I can do that, master. And it's like, oh, they so cute.
I know,
like,
what a power couple.
So back at Ren's hideout, they start to come up with a plan to rescue Yandazu from the Yellowhead building. They sort of are, maybe it's this scene or a scene later on where they're talking with Joy, and she's like, what the hell's going on? Like, explain everything. And there's like, it goes from like early morning to like daytime. Like, they show the window going from night to day sort of thing. And Zhang, the informant for Yandazu, is like, well, I might know someone who can help you get into the Yellowhead building.
Oh.
Yeah, so
You brought up like the yellow, like I think I talked in episode 8 or something about how stupid that name is, the Yellowheads, fucking retarded. But like, it's in Japanese. It's what, Kotenkai. Kotenkai, which sounds sick.
It
like,
sounds
that's
awesome.
I'm like, hell yeah, I'd name my gang that.
Yeah.
The translation though, it don't work. It sounds like a fucking like a Mortal Kombat villain. You're climbing the ladder, you have to fight Kotenkai.
yeah.
And then it's just bad translation. It's like, yeah, Yellowhead, the fiercest of all. It's like, nah, man.
So
Doesn't have the same impact.
for sure, I don't disagree. And like they're at like, what did you think of the Mad Angel's name? Like,
What is it in Japanese?
I don't know.
Right, it probably sounds sick as fuck. But Mad Angels is like, what are you, like a 60-year-old motorcycle
That
club?
sounds cooler than Yellowhead, though.
Hell's Angels is sick.
Yeah.
Mad Angels. Ooh.
Yeah. Well, like, I don't know. They even have that line where fucking Terry is like, let me invite you to hell. And it's like, yeah, you could have done like Hell's Angels. That would have been cool. But so, yeah, Rio and Ren, they meet up with Zhang's informant. And it turns out to be this old man in a pitch black room. And
anytime you see a fucking old man, you know shit's gonna go down. You're like, Rio, don't do it, brother. You're gonna get your ass flayed.
Well, and in the game, you see that old man earlier in Kowloon. Like, when you first arrive in Kowloon, he's pretending to be like a blind street like instrument player, essentially. And he's like, yeah, like you sort of can ask him questions, and he very clearly knows more than he lets on. Like, he's a pretty good informant, I guess, throughout the game. And then sort of in this scene, you know, this is pretty much how it plays out in the game. He's like, hey, I want to spar with you, Rio. And Rio's like, but it's too dark. How are we gonna do this?
I don't have a nightlight.
And so they are fighting, and of course Rio can't land a hit on the guy since they're in a pitch black room. And so the guy's like, hey, like, stop focusing on your sight. You know, like, that's you have other senses, my guy.
Get good.
Yeah, basically. And once Rio sort of is like, okay, I'll close my eyes and sort of focus on like the sounds and stuff, we get this sort of thing where he has like an aura around him, and it's like his chi, I guess, or something. And so he's eventually able to like block the old man's moves and then like catch one of his punches. And he's like, yeah, you learned it.
Talking about.
Good job, Rio. And so he turns the light on. And this is where they reveal in the game that he's not actually blind. And he's like, yeah, I just trick people.
Gotcha.
And spy on them, you know? And so, yeah, he's like, hey, I'll help you out. Like, when I heard that, you know, Iwao Hozuki's son was here, I was like, yeah, that's a person I want to meet, because he knew his father. He was like, yeah, 10 years ago, he came through here, and we sort of traded martial arts secrets. And
In this very room. Ooh.
Did he say that?
I think so.
I
Like
feel
Rio's like, my father was in this room or something.
Yeah, maybe you're right. But yeah, it's sort of a neat thing where, and we get a lot of that in Shenmue 3 as well, where there's like, when they go to Bailu Village, they're like, are a lot of people who are like, yeah, I knew your dad. And he's like, shit, he was here? That's crazy.
Hi, daddy.
But yeah, the old man, he tells Rio to look for a, basically the Yellowheads run this like underground street fighting tourney, and they have this talent scout who essentially like looks out for members who are like fighters who could be good members of the Yellowheads, and he's like, okay, go do some street fights. And he's like, all right. After that, Rio, they sort of leave, Rio and Ren, they leave together, and Rio's like, hey, like, you've been really helpful like up until now, but you don't really need to help me anymore. Like, I'm sort of good just going on my way. And Ren's like, the fuck I am.
But I love you.
Basically.
Yeah.
So Ren is sort of pissed, and obviously we'll get more of him later. But Rio, he goes to the street fights, and he fights Anjing Zhao, who is a street fighter who specializes in acrobatic martial arts. And he's able to knock him out in a single hit. He like closes his eyes and focuses and uses the counter elbow assaults on him.
He's one elbow man.
Yeah. Well, in the game, I sort of talked with Ben about this a bit before we recorded. Like, there are different fighters that you can sort of take on, and you know, they're basically each have like a different gimmick that you got to do. Like for this one, it was you just have to land a single hit on him to be considered the winner. And yeah, it's sort of similar, I guess, in a sense in this. But yeah, he beats him, and from there we go to this like scenic overlook thing. Like, it's like a staircase overlooking like the bay of, you know, sort of China, I guess, or like the China Sea or something like that. But yeah, and Joy, she shows up and she's talking with Ren about why they've both sort of been helping Rio so much. And she speculates that Ren wants to be more like Rio. Like, she sort of says, like, Ren, you're stuck sort of in the confines of the laws of this land, which I think is her way of saying, like, you're putting yourself in this box and only being like, well, I can't leave Hong Kong and, like, go on some big adventure because all I know is Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And, you know, he sort of is thinking about that, and Joy tells him, you know, like, if you want to turn around, now is the time. Like, because if you keep going, you're going to be going against the Yellowheads, the Chiyu men. Like, that's not something you come back from.
Right.
You know, without
You need
really
to shit or get off the pot, Ren.
Basically, yeah.
And I was very happy to see that Joy's particular design in her midriff was reduced. It was less emphasized.
Just for this scene, though.
Yeah,
We'll
right.
get
I
into
know.
that.
I was like talking about it. I was like, good for them, dude. It's not all just like boobs in your face, so I can't understand what's happening because they want you to be drooling. So it's like, yeah, tone it down. That's good. Thank you.
So after they're done talking, we see that one of the Yellowhead goons was eavesdropping on them. He's sort of like chilling behind a tree, and he's like, and so then from there we go to Rio, who has just won another street fight, and this finally gets the Yellowhead Scout's attention, and he's this sort of portly dude with like a bowler cap on, like not a very intimidating or scary person.
No.
And that's exactly how he looks in the game. Like, it's to a T, like the same design. But he is like, hey, meet me on Dragon Street after dark. And Rio's like, oh, surely. Well, I think he says his name too, because like
He does.
the old man was like, yeah, go talk to Huandeng Zhao or something.
It was like Wanda How.
Yeah, something like that.
There's Wanda
Yuanda
who, Yuanda who,
Yeah.
Yuanda how, Yuanda when, Yuanda to what extent.
You wanted to why?
All the questions are here. All the Yuanda questions are here.
So, he's like, yeah, meet me on Dragon Street later on. And from there, we jump back over to Hong Kong. And Wong is sort of talking with Joy, and he's like, hey, are we going to, like, keep helping Rio? You know, you've got him a hotel room. You helped him find martial artists. Like, you should keep helping him. Like, he's a pretty cool dude. And she's like, no, I'm not going to help him because people like us can't go against organizations like the Yellowheads and Chiyu Men.
And she was just telling Ren
yeah,
that he should be doing that.
I mean, sort of. Like,
That he
she's
just
also,
needs to realize what he's doing.
yeah, I guess, more or less. And
She's like, I realize that I don't want to fuck with that at all.
yeah.
You should do the same.
Well, and Wong is like, hey, like, why the fuck are all the adults acting like this? Like, this is why everything is so fucked up and no one looks out for each other anymore. And we need to take a stand. But she sort of has this, like, flashback to when her parents died. And she's like, she doesn't really say anything. And she just rides off on the motorcycle. She's all sad about that. But, yeah, Rio, he meets up with the scout at Dragon Street. And the scout gives him a photo of a man, and he's like, okay, you got beat this guy.
He does
in the
it
street
weirdly, though. Like, they walk into this, like, old, dimly lit hallway of
fight.
concrete.
Well, at first he's like, there's too many eyes here.
Yeah, and he turns, he's
"Let's go
like,
in this
take a look
alley."
at this. And I was expecting some, like, fucking...
A nude?
Yeah, some cheese pizza, and it's like, whoa, dude, that is not why I'm here. Oh, what?
It's
You
like,
didn't
I
want
thought you were
this?
the scout for the Yellowheads.
Yeah,
it's
dude.
like, no, I'm a pervert.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, hey, beat this guy. That sounds like something out of like a fucking Yakuza game where there's like, there are random
just
like
flashes you or
perverts.
something,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's like flashers and like a gang of perverts and stuff. But no, it's not that. He's just like, you just fight this guy. So he heads to the arena, and we see the end of like another fight wrapping up, and it's Master Baihu, who is going to make an appearance later on.
Bro, he looks like a Final Fantasy character. This is like... And I'm not talking about one of the toned down ones. This is a flamboyant motherfucker. What? No one else looks like this.
It's who's the villain in Final Fantasy VI?
Kefka.
Kefka.
Yeah.
It's Kefka.
Yeah. Honestly, it looks ridiculous. And I'm like,
I don't
is
know
that
much
makeup?
about-
Is that a mask?
I don't know much about traditional like Chinese martial arts like garb, so that could be something. Like I don't know. I don't know enough
man.
about it.
It's a
Like
cross between Kefka and the fucking like somebody from Soul Calibur.
yeah,
Who's the fucking guy with the claws? And he's got like three claws.
Voldo. That's
Voldo.
Voldo.
He's Voldo and Kefka.
Yeah, but Rio, his opponent is Greg Moore, who's just this fucking burly
Greg
like
Moore. We go from that man to fucking
to Greg
to
Moore.
white bread, big old chunk, big old honk.
Yeah,
piece
he's
of
like
meat.
a fucking motorcycle guy. Like
Greg. Your opponent will be Greg. Oh shit!
and so like he's able to beat Greg Moore, and like it has to be one hit. Like it's
Up
a
next, Philip.
it's a difficult fight in the game because he's like a tank, you know, like he's able to do this like move where he takes Rio and like does like a thing where he grabs him by his legs and like throws him around, and he can throw Rio out of the ring. But in
His
this,
signature move, the Gregacane. The Greganator.
but in this, he's able to just sort of beat him pretty easily. And you know, after that, let's see, yeah, the talent scout for the Yellowheads is like, hey, like good job winning. Here's the next location that you got to head to. And in the games, there's 2 more fights that you have to do before this sort of interaction happens. Like he gives you 3 photos of people that you have to fight, and they sort of progressively get more difficult. But
That makes more sense, but like we didn't need to see that in the anime, so it's fine.
yeah, one, it's like I do think it's a shame because the third one, it like is in this like weird sort of basement in one of the buildings, and it's this lady, And her whole shtick is that when she wins a fight, she drops the person off a cliff. And so you beat
Jesus.
her and like...
Remember how I said I'd kill you last? I lied.
And so like the whole thing is you like she's hanging on sort of for dear life and Rio's like, no, I'm not going to fucking let you die.
Who's the fighter from Tekken Kuma? Or
I
the
don't
guy who
fucking
throws
know.
people off of cliffs? He killed like Kirby.
Oh shit. God, I can't think of his name right now.
Yeah.
But I know who you're talking about. But yeah, it's you know, that would have been a more impactful one if he had been like, yeah, like kill this one, and he's like, okay, I'm not.
Yeah,
gonna
that'd be
let you
dope.
die.
I would have taken that over them just bumming around Pigeon Park a few episodes ago doing nothing.
They were doing
Time crunch.
They were doing stuff.
No, they were like, are you the martial artist? No. Well, all right. Off to the convenience store. Are you the martial artist? No. Well, all right. We could have had this fight.
But the Easter eggs.
No.
Ben. Think of the Easter eggs. So after that, Ren, he shows up and he's giving Rio shit for winning the fight since he bet against Rio, essentially. And that is in the game as well.
That's funny.
He's like, fuck you, man.
Greg is unbeatable. How did you do that?
And so as they're sort of talking, the yellowhead goon from earlier who's been eavesdropping, he's still sort of creeping on them, and he's like, oh, I gotta tell Dou Niu about this. I'm paraphrasing. He doesn't actually say anything. But, yeah, back at Dou Niu's hideout, we have Yuan. And this scene is like, I don't know if they just needed something to like be like, okay, here's the villains again. Like,
Yeah.
it's just them sort of talking, and Yuan is like, yeah, Landi's gonna be here tomorrow to pick up Yandazu. And Dou Niu's like, yes, and I'll control all of Hong Kong. And he does his like villain
It
laugh.
is pretty
while
great.
he's
I'll
looking at-
take it.
Yeah,
Like-
it's just a weird scene
There's some
given that we
campy-ass villains.
yeah. They just needed to establish that, I guess. But yeah, we after that get a brief scene in Bailu Village, and it's Shenhua. She's showing up like late at night to her house, and she's like, "Hey, Dad, you home? Like, what are you
Gotta
here?"
prep the fruit.
Yeah, gotta prep the apple
The
and the
apple
banana.
Apple and banana.
So she like her dad's not home, and she's like, oh, he must be at the quarry still. And she sees a diagram of the Phoenix and Dragon mirror on her father's desk, and she's like, the fuck is it?
Can't be.
Yeah. And we end the scene. It's end scene. And so after that, we have Joy visiting her parents' grave, and
Right after her boob job, dude, they put her tits like even bigger than before. Remember, I
it's
complimented that they reduced it. I was like, "Hey, good job, y'all." Nope.
the shot as well is like very weirdly framed. Like it's
Her
just
chest.
her like neck to her like
Stomach.
yeah, like stomach,
Yeah,
and that's it. And
just
it's like
big old tits
it's weird,
right in your face when
And,
it's like trying to be somber.
yeah, it's a sad scene.
Yeah, she's
and,
crying at the grave of her parents, and it's like, isn't she so hot? It's like,
like,
bro,
fucking weird. And she like
it's like if you just the creepy guy was following you around, and you were just trying to like hang out with your
I'm
with your
mourning
friend,
here.
yeah, or hang out with people, and it's like, oh, isn't she? Oh my god, I'd lick the sweat out
That's
from her
like-
cleavage. It's like, dude,
is it that
could you
fucking
not talk
auntie-
to me like this? Could
is
you
it that
go away?
Auntie Dama skit where they're like
Yeah.
in the they're in like a coffee shop,
Right.
and they're acting like they're like being all stealthy, like
Just
checking
take a
this.
little peek. Just take a little peek at that girl over there. That must be what they think we are.
We'll link to Auntie Dama's skit.
Yeah, right.
in the description.
You're welcome.
But yeah, they it's this really sort of sad scene, and she's saying like, yeah, I'll never forgive my father or the syndicate for getting her mother killed.
and then they frame her ass in another shot.
yes, they do that.
Like
as
it's
well.
just her whole butt, or not her whole butt.
It's one-
It's a
a
cheek.
single cheek,
You get a
yeah.
cheek.
So from there, we're back in Hong Kong briefly, and Ren's thugs. We got like the one with the boombox, and the other two. They're sort of trying to rope Wong into finding a mark for them to rob. They're like, "Hey, go find someone, and we'll pull our little scam that we do." And Wong is sort of like apprehensive because he has more important things that he's sort of thinking about right now. But he goes to the Golden Shopping Mall, and he overhears this conversation between the yellowhead thug who's like the sort of scrunchy-faced, burly dude who's been in all the other episodes in Hong Kong anyways. But yeah, he's talking with a member of the Chiyu men about the deal to basically hand over Yondazu to Lan-Di. And they're like, yeah, we caught this, or we're keeping tabs on this Ren and Rio guy, so, we'll sort of nip that in the bud and make it so that won't cause any trouble. And
Talking to a man in black.
Yeah, and so...
Like the movie, like Tommy Lee Jones is there listening to this guy talk.
Yeah.
He's going to wipe his memory afterwards.
But Wong, he is listening to all this, and he, of course, can't keep his mouth shut, and he's like, Ren! And
yeah, dude.
He says it as loudly as humanly possible, and of course, the yellowhead goon
idiot.
hears this, and he's like, what the fuck? Someone's spying on us. I need to chase them now. And
that was such a stupid way to make them see him. Like, they should have just had the Secret Service dude be like,
hey,
look at that.
We're fucking being listened to.
Can you kill that kid real fast for me?
Yeah. So Wong runs off, and he runs past Ren's thugs, and the thugs just stand there and do absolutely nothing. They're like, oh, yeah. So they're useless. And after that, we have Rio. He meets up with the Yellowhead scouts, and they're sort of in this basement area going into the Yellowheads building. There's like this gate that they have to go through. And Ren is like tailing them, but he's also being tailed by the Yellowhead spy who's been sort of following them throughout this episode. It's like that meme in the church or whatever where it's like all the people pointing guns at each other. But Ren shows up. He knocks out the Yellowhead scout. Well, no, actually, he sort of like talks to him first. He's like interrogating him. He's like, where do you keep your hostages? He's like, I don't fucking know. Like, I'm just the scout. I don't do this stuff. And he's like, where? And he's like, the 17th floor, I guess. Yeah, like, I don't know. Like, just get off my back, dude. And then Ren knocks him out with like the back of his knife.
Yeah, the grip.
Yeah, like the grip. He pops him on the back of the head. And he's like feeling the dude up.
I know.
Like he's feeling him up a little too much. He's like touching his ass, but he finds a walkie-talkie on the scout of the Yellowheads, and he's like, like we can use this to our advantage. And he's like, hey, they're all going to the 5th floor. Like there's intruders there.
And then they said, who the fuck is this?
Yeah, so I don't recognize your voice. Like
this isn't Yuanda Hao.
But all the goons are like, okay, we'll head there. And that is something that happens in the game. Like there are so many, I guess, Yellowhead's goons that they're like, oh, they're not gonna know everyone's voice because there's so many of them.
I guess.
But he's like, okay, we'll sort of do that. But let me see where we are because I sort of lost my place here. Oh geez, I need to scroll down.
Oh yeah, back to Joy and Wong, right?
I think that's like yeah, you're right. Yeah. So we go back to Joy and Wong. They're like essentially Wong is running away and Joy rides up on her motorcycle. She's like, "Hey, what's going on? Like, why are you look so distraught?" And Wong's like, "Fucking let me on. We need to get out of here now."
Get the fuck off.
And she just sits there and doesn't drive off.
Wong, what have you been up to, silly?
And he's like, the fucking Yellowheads
and
are after
dude's
me.
running
we need
up
to
on
get
him.
The fuck out of here. And so they ride off, and she's like, Wong, you and your shenanigans. I told you not to get involved.
I think it's really weird that they separated these scenes. Like, Wong's running
They're
away.
They're bouncing back and forth a lot.
That was weird.
Yeah.
Like, why? It just kind of breaks up the pace. It's like going full throttle. He's running from the guy, and then you take a break. You're doing this and that, and then you go back to full throttle in the next scene, back to that thing. It's like, just carry it. Just do the thing. You didn't need to split them up like that. It's kind of choppy.
Yeah, it's a little choppy. But, I mean, like, we're going really fast towards the end of the episode, so it's like, I think
it wouldn't have changed the pace or anything. It would have just
been like, we'll wrap
been
that
more
up.
Coherent, yeah.
Yeah. So, Rio and Ren, after that sort of brief scene with Joy and Wong, they're taking the elevator up to the 17th floor, and an absolute bop of a remix of the main Shenmue theme is playing, while they're sort of riding up the elevator together, and they get up to the 17th floor, and they go to the room where Yuanda Zu is supposedly being held, and The room is, of course, empty.
They're just flowers.
And we hear,
It's
yeah,
nice.
there's just a little nice pot of flowers
Yeah.
there. And, of course, we hear the fucking thuds coming in.
Yeah, it's your boy.
And, yeah, boy, the
Dicks out for
absolute...
Dou Niu.
The thick lad, Dou Niu himself, is like, you fucking dumbasses. Like, I've been a step ahead of you the entire time. And it's like, it's showing him, like, in shadows, and it, like, pans up on, like, and you just see, like, the pupils of his eyes.
Just fucking, like, brr.
Yeah. And we end the episode there. It's another cliffhanger ending.
That was stupid. It's last week again.
I love it.
Literally the same
It gets
people,
me excited.
same characters, same scenario.
No, not the same characters. We don't know Shu.
Whatever. There's one less. And it's like, what's going to happen now? It's like...
I like it.
I do want to see how they're going to fight him, though. Because they tried to punch his kidneys out, and he was just like, psh.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, I think, because they have released, like, a preview for next week's episode. It's a lot of, like, running away from him.
Oh, God damn it.
Through the building, and it's, like, dilapidated, and so they're sort of, like, knocking stuff down to be like, like, we're safe for now, sort of thing. But I think they're going to wrap up Kowloon by the end of the next episode. Though.
Oh, is the finale to the second or third disc? Are we at?
I forget if Shenmue 2 is 3 or 4 discs. So
well, you
this
said that there's like a big thing that happens that would be kind of a good place to end it.
Yeah.
Is that in Kowloon?
That's in Kowloon, yeah. That's at the top of the Yellowheads building.
And you think that's going to happen next
at the end of the next episode?
Well, then there's still one more, right?
Yes, and that's...
What do you think?
So the title for the 13th episode, if you're okay with me telling that...
Dude, yeah. The titles don't make any sense.
Yeah, you're right. But the next one... So episode 12 is Guidepost, which... I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. And then episode 13 is just titled Shenmue. And I'm thinking that that's going to be the scene where they're outside of Shenhua's house, and she's like, yeah, this is the Shenmue tree. And he's like, Shenmue. And then maybe that's where it ends. Maybe they do go to the cave. We'll sort of see how that pans out. But
it also sounds dangerously similar to a recap episode. But hopefully not.
I don't think they...
Animes like to do that within 13 episodes. Like, we
They
got
don't
13
have-
episodes in, recap time.
So my whole thing with that is like with a show that's in syndication, like Naruto, for example, where you have like them adapting a long-running manga.
Well, yeah.
They have to fill things, like they have to fill time.
Yeah.
Whereas Shenmue, for better or worse, does not have that luxury of
I don't think
having
it's going to be a recap. I'm just like... I think it just reminds me of the worst recap of all time was it's in Next Generation, the end of season 2. Literally, like the season finale is a recap episode. That's awful. It's so
One
bad.
for live action TV, that's weird too.
It
Like
was
they did
so
that
fucking awful.
They did that in Scrubs as well. I think during the writers' strike, they like
It might have even been the end of season 1. Like there wasn't even that many scenes that had happened, and it was just like, yo,
yeah.
this is how you finish. And I read threads on it in like Reddit, and just people were like, yeah, when this came out and you were like hyped for a season finale, it was like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
Like Riker goes into a coma and just is dreaming all the shit that happened.
All our memories.
And they're all just standing around his comatose body like, how do we get him out of the coma? It's so fucking bad.
So, what did you think of the episode, sort of overall?
It's good. It's getting kind of messy with like trying to tell which parts are in Hong Kong and which parts are in Kowloon.
Yeah.
Like they don't do a good job of telling you where scenes are. Like I know the Joy is like, I'm going back and this and that, but it's all happening so quickly.
Yeah.
I wish they had like, I mean, I talked about this before too. I'm watching the fucking Boardwalk Empire, right? And even when it's obvious where a scene's taking place, like the characters from this city are in the scene, they still will say like Chicago underneath or Philadelphia or New York. Like, I appreciate that. Thank you. They should just like, I don't know. They don't need to go to cut to black and show the name of it like Shenmue does, but something.
Yeah.
Because they look really similar. Like I literally had to ask Matthew. I was like, are they in Kowloon right now? And you're like, no. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's like, I sort of like in the game that once you leave Hong Kong, you're in Kowloon, and that's like it. That's it. You're there for the rest of that portion. I think he like between Kowloon and like rural China, he goes back to Hong Kong for like one final goodbye or something. But that's like it. You know, there aren't these things where they're bouncing back and forth.
Yeah, and how far are like Hong Kong and Kowloon from each other?
So I don't know, like, geographically in real life how far they are, but in the game they make it seem like it's far enough that Rio has to ride a bus to get there.
Journey,
Yeah, whereas in this, they sort of like, just are like, okay, they're there now.
Yeah, when you go back and forth like that, it makes it seem like less impact if they're in a new setting. It's just like, oh, they're just next door, you know, whatever.
Yeah. So I do agree, like, it's just more like issues with establishing where they are than anything. I do think the pacing with this episode was better compared to last week, because we had that whole... My problem with last week's episode was the ending where they're like, let's find Yandazu.
Boom, boom, boom,
and it's
boom,
like,
yeah.
there's all these secret passages and stuff, and it just felt like forced.
And they're running the whole time, and the music's like, bum, 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 and it's
yeah,
like, oh my
and it's
God.
like a montage of them going through all these weird doorways and stuff. Whereas at least this one, it's like, okay, there's some... Like, even if things are happening quickly, I'm at least like, okay, I can follow what's happening, and it makes sense, like, to some degree. Like, you could be like, yeah,
I am relying on you more and more, because there's a lot of like blink and you miss it plot points.
Yeah, and that's why it's good that I watched these so many times this week. But yeah, I like this episode, and I think sort of so far the second half of the show overall I've liked more than the first half. Like, I feel like it's been... It
hasn't gotten bad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I did like last episode just a little bit more, but this one's good.
Yeah, for sure. So why do you think this episode was called Entangled?
Entangled. I want to answer this legitimately. Well, it's just kind of, I guess that like Rio and Ren are still entangled in Kowloon and Yandazu and the Yellowheads.
Yeah.
And maybe Joy's like, Ren, you know, you need to decide before you get entangled in stuff that you can't get out of.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Entangled, that's not as bad as some of the other names.
Yeah.
It's fine, I guess.
I think of the sort of weirder ones, like it's fine.
Guidepost sounds fucking weird. What the hell?
Yeah, and it's like because it could be that like they finish up Kowloon like halfway through the episode, or like in 2/3 of the episode, and then he's looking at like the guideposts to go to Bailu, because that is a thing in the game where he's like going through rural China and he sees the guideposts there. Or it could just be bullshit again. Like, we're sort of gonna have to see how that shakes out, or if it's like Yandazu's like, okay, you gotta go to Bailu, and that's his guidepost, is that he's been told to go there. So I don't know, we'll see how that sort of shakes out. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
This has gone pretty fast. Like, show's almost over. I felt like when we finished the first game of Shenmue, it was like those 5 episodes felt like it was longer than these have felt.
Yeah.
In Hong Kong, I don't know. It's like it's gone pretty quickly, which is a good thing. It's just like been enjoying it, and it's not dragging. I'm like, oh
yeah,
oh shit, we're almost done.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's crazy. Like 13 weeks. Like that's.
I know, it's always weird. Like when you get to the end of a show and you're like, have I really been watching it this long? Is it really? But yeah, no, it's. So overall, you know, I guess I'll hold off rating the show until it's done.
Yeah, and like I'm still sort of figuring out what we're gonna do for like the last episode. If we're gonna do like a recap type thing. Obviously, we won't do synopsis for each episode, but like they on Crunchyroll have like an episode description.
Yeah,
I might be like, hey, we'll go through and sort of like refresh our memories. I might watch it, like I might rewatch it, I guess, all the episodes. So I'm sort of like fresh, you know, in terms of like what I sort of think about that. But
I do like that the second game seems to emphasize a lot more on character, like development and information. Yeah, like the first game's just like I need to get to Londi, and I need to do this, and I need to get out of Japan, I need to go to Hong Kong, and it's like the steps there. This one's a lot more like he still has to find Yandazu and all this stuff, but it's a lot more like I knew your father. Here's more details about it. Here's information on you know, the martial arts that he learned, that you're learning, that like here's the background, a lot
Yeah.
more background.
Well, and, like, we learn a lot more, or Rio learns a lot more about
Yeah.
himself and, like, what it means to be a martial artist, what it means for him, I guess.
Yeah,
you
seems
know,
like the
that's
second game definitely has a lot more story than the other two.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for
which
sure.
it's
I
interesting.
agree. Yeah. So that's going to do it for today's episode of the Boyos Discuss. If you enjoyed the podcast and are listening on YouTube, we'd really appreciate it if you'd like the video and subscribe to the channel. We'll be back next week to review the penultimate episode of Shenmue the Animation. Anyways, guys, until next time.